Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing down the blueprint, the real architecture of logistics leadership. If you've ever felt completely buried under the sheer volume of moving parts in this industry, well, you're exactly where you need to be right now. We're going to look at exactly what it takes to break out of that daily chaotic grind of an employee and step into the role of someone who actually commands a logistics empire. We'll be breaking down the specific mindset shifts and control systems you need to build something that actually lasts. So let's get right into it. Let me ask you a really blunt question, one that pretty much gets right to the core of why so many people fail in transport. Are you chasing trucks or are you building an empire? I know, it sounds super simple, right? But honestly, this right here is a dividing line between folks who just burn out and those who actually break through. Most people jump into the space thinking, hey, if I just get one more truck or maybe one more driver, one more load, everything's magically going to fall into place. But that's a massive trap. Chasing trucks? That's just playing a reactive game. You're basically a professional firefighter at that point. Building an empire, though? That requires a completely different headspace. To actually build that empire, we need to shatter a pretty massive illusion right out of the gate. Logistics? It is not a trucking business. Crazy, right? But real top-tier operators know it's actually a strict architectural framework. It's a control system for three things: movement, time, and money. Think about it. If you aren't controlling those three variables, I guarantee you they are controlling you. And getting from an overworked employee to a true logistics leader, it's not actually about how much cash you got stashed away or how shiny your fleet looks. Nope, it's entirely about how you design and manage this underlying control system. And here is the brutal reality. 70%. That's right, more than 70% of transport startups absolutely collapse in their very first year. Just pause and let that number sink in for a second. More than 2/3 just vanish. They get completely trapped in the struggle phase, and the kicker is, it's a struggle of their own making. And look, it's not because market demand is low. People are always going to need stuff moved, right? It's because founders are operating with the totally wrong framework. They dive headfirst into this highly complex, super capital-intensive industry without realizing they need a robust, almost obsessive system just to survive it. Because look what happens when you try to scale without that system. You walk straight into a literal minefield of avoidable mistakes. Broken cash flow is almost always the first domino to drop. Imagine you're paying out of pocket to fuel up on a Tuesday, right? But you're not actually seeing a dime for that load until the end of next month. That's not just a tight spot. That is severely broken cash flow. Toss in clients dragging their feet on payments, the relentless squeezing pressure of rising fuel and toll costs, and then the ultimate killer, scaling too fast before you're stable. When an operator just throws more trucks at their problems, those little structural cracks turn into absolute business enders. Now, why does this structural collapse even happen? Well, it almost always comes down to a fundamental failure to shift your mindset. See, an employee is wired to think about salary, just surviving the next shift, protecting job security. And hey, that's totally understandable, but it's entirely about short-term self-preservation. A true leader, on the other hand, thinks completely differently. A leader looks at the board and asks, okay, how do I actually control these routes? How do we systematically wipe out those empty miles? How do I build autonomous systems that can eventually run this whole thing completely without me? Going from worker to owner, that is a mental transformation first and foremost. If you don't upgrade your operating system up here to focus on control and systems, you're just going to end up as an exhausted employee in a business you happen to own. Let's really ground this in reality for a second. Imagine the sheer, crushing pressure on a small fleet owner. Picture someone who has, say, 5 trucks. Now, on paper, you'd look at that and think, hey, successful business. But behind the scenes, they're drowning. It's 2 a.m., a tire just blew out on the interstate, the driver is absolutely furious, and the client is already threatening a penalty fee. Meanwhile, debt is climbing higher every single month, and good drivers are bailing because the whole operation is just hopelessly disorganized. It's collapsing rapidly. This right here is the breaking point. This is exactly the moment where most folks throw their hands up, blame the industry, and walk away. Because without a solid control system, 5 trucks isn't a fleet, guys. It's just 5 massive liabilities bleeding you dry. But here's the magic. Instead of rage quitting when that pressure hits its peak, the truly successful owners make one massive paradigm-shifting decision. They say, before I grow, I will stabilize. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a command. I must stabilize. This is the ultimate turning point from total chaos to crystal clarity. It takes an immense amount of discipline to just stop obsessing over expansion and start focusing purely on survival. It's finally realizing that, hey, adding a sixth truck to a broken system isn't going to save you. It's just going to fast track your bankruptcy. Selling off assets might feel like you're taking a huge step backward, but choosing stabilization, that is the ultimate power move of a true logistics leader.
So how do you actually execute that survival strategy? Well, first off, you've got to check your ego at the door and strip the business right down to the studs. Step 1, you liquidate the underperforming assets. You just have to let go of any trucks or equipment that are burning more cash than they bring in. Next, you stop trying to be everything to everyone everywhere. You zero in, laser focused on high demand routes only. And finally, you get out there and secure direct contracts with clients. It's a super cohesive strategy, and it's built purely around creating reliable day-to-day control over your time, your movement, and your money.
You see, successful operators aren't blindly chasing trucks around the map. They are building an impenetrable fortress. They focus with absolute intensity on mastering just one highly profitable route first. Just one. Once you've got that dialed in, you build those direct client relationships so you have real reliability. Then you lock down your cash flow like a vault so you're never left starving for operating capital. And the ultimate goal here? Completely eliminating your dependency on middlemen. Look, brokers serve a purpose, sure. But if your entire livelihood depends on refreshing a broker's load board, you're really just an employee of that broker, right? Cutting them out is the exact moment you transform from a dependent participant into the autonomous architect of your own business. You finally control the variables. And when you actually do that, the results are completely undeniable. By making that hard choice to survive and systematize before you try to scale, slowly but surely, the whole picture changes. The debt stops spiraling and stabilizes. Your cash flow rapidly improves, which finally lets you take a breath. But the absolute best part, your daily operations transform into a predictable, well-oiled machine. You're no longer waking up in a cold sweat wondering what new crisis is going to hit you today. You've built a real system. A system that can absorb the crazy chaos of the transport industry and actually convert it into steady, predictable output. And here's the payoff. Once you systemize that control, you've officially earned the right to scale. It's a deliberate, step-by-step evolution. It all starts with mastering that single system we just talked about. From there, you can expand that control to build out an entire network of routes. Then, you level up even further, developing a chain of warehouses so you're controlling the inventory right alongside the movement. Until finally, you are the one commanding a sprawling, multi-region logistics empire. So remember, size does not create systems. It's the systems that actually allow you to create size. I want to leave you with this final thought today. In logistics, those who control the operations, they are the ones who control the industry. Mastering this game is ultimately about power. It's about mindset, and it's about architecture. You have got to make that leap from the employee mindset of just doing the daily work to the leader mindset of designing the machine that does the work for you. So I want you to take a hard look at your own daily grind right now. What are you truly controlling today? Are you designing an empire, or are you just driving in circles? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps you get out there and build your system.